Hi everyone! So today I'm going to be giving you guys a summer houseplant growth update because we are now in the peak of what is the traditional growing season and a lot of my plants have really taken off. So we're going to be looking at 10 houseplants then versus now. So this is going to be a little bit of a houseplant show and tell, as it were, and I am just awed by how much growth some of these plants have gotten, and I am especially happy about the one that I am going to show you last today. She has just come so far and is looking so beautiful, and I am just so excited for her. But first, I want to start off with what has hands down been the fastest growing Epipremnum for me out of the total 4 Epipremnums that I own, and that is my Epipremnum aureum marble queen. And here's a picture of what she looked like back in January. I have since then had to repot her into a larger pot, and ever since I did that, she has just taken off even more in terms of rapid growth. So much so that it's a little bit hard to get her on camera here, and actually you guys, if I'm being honest, a lot of these plants are going to be a little bit hard to get on camera today, so we're going to see how we can manage here. If it's not working out, I might have to relocate us somewhere where I can be a little bit further back so you can see the whole plant, but we'll see how it goes. So here she is. I decided just to leave her on her plant stand to try to make this a little bit easier, but you can see just how full and big she has gotten. I do believe she's in maybe an 8 or a 9-inch pot now. She was in a 6-inch pot when you saw that picture from back in January, and you can just see how much she has grown, and especially this one vine that has just gotten incredibly long. Now there are a bunch of other vines that are growing up in this pot as well, but this was the longest, or not longest, the most mature one when I bought her, so that's why this one has grown so much quicker than the rest of them, but eventually those other ones will catch up. And she has lived in front of a north-facing window in my house the entire time that I've had her. At one point she was in a north-facing window upstairs. She has now been living in the north-facing window in my dining room, and she has done great in that level of lighting. Now I have actually propagated her once. It wasn't from this vine, it was from one of the other vines, but it was just a short little like 2-leaf cutting. And I propagated that, and I actually gave it to my mother for Mother's Day last year, or actually, I gave her a different plant for Mother's Day, but unfortunately my father seems to have overwatered it while she was traveling, and that original plant didn't make it. So I gave her the propagation from this plant as the replacement plant for that plant. And I did actually just get to see that plant this weekend while I was down in Houston. And here's what she looks like today, the little baby propagation, doing wonderful. And I am probably going to propagate this plant again and give my mom another one of those propagations so the next time she repots, she can have a fuller looking plant. So I am just super, super impressed with this girl, and I know this growth is just going to continue, and I can't wait to see what she looks like in the next few months. But let me get her moved back out of here, and we are going to look at a much smaller plant for our next plant. So the next plant we're going to take a look at is my string of pearls, also known as a Senecio or a Curio rowleyanus. And if I'm being honest with you guys, my string of bananas is also growing super fast as well, but I think it's just so much more noticeable to me on Pearl because she's such a more juvenile plant. So the last time you guys saw her was actually in my string of plant care guide video, and that was back in May. And as you can see here, she wasn't very long, and she did have gaps on some of the places around her pot, but now we have filled in a lot of those gaps and we are just pumping out new pearls like nobody's business. So here is what she looks like now, and as you can see, we've got much longer vines going on here. And if you can see here, we are having vines all the way around this pot. Maybe there's a little space there, maybe. But you can see all of these beautiful pearls all clustered very close together. I'm going to try and tilt her without dumping any dirt so you can see kind of all of these clustered little tiny green pearls up on top. She is just looking very, very full, very, very beautiful. And I am just so excited to see her start to mature. And I did actually have to relocate her for the summer because even though she was on one of those shelves on the wall in my living room that's fairly close to my southern facing windows, when we stopped getting direct light coming through those windows, the level of light that she was getting really was not enough. So I did recently build some shelves to put behind my couch. As you can see here, they're just simple shelves. I had some leftover wood from another project, and I just made these and spray painted them white so I could put plants back there. So she has been sitting on one of those shelves directly in that southern facing window all summer long so that she was getting enough light to really be able to pump out this level of growth. But absolutely adore her. I'm just so excited to see how much longer and fuller she gets over the course of the rest of the summer. So the next 3 plants that we're going to be looking at at are actually all philodendrons, and my philodendrons have been taking off like crazy, but 3 of them in particular have really been pumping out a ton of new growth. And so we're actually going to take a look at the fastest growing one first, and that is my Philodendron cordatum. So here's what my Philodendron cordatum looked like back in May. And I did actually just have to repot this plant, even though it wasn't really totally root bound, but it was sending out incredibly long roots through the drainage holes, and I needed to address the situation. I mean, they were like this long when I took her out of the pot. But here is what she is looking like now. And this is one of those ones, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get her entirely on screen for you because she is just so incredibly long. Just look at that. Full, long, beautiful green leaves here. And this plant actually has been propagated multiple times, so she would have been even longer than all of this if I had not taken all of those propagations. And just so you guys know, on all these plants that I'm showing you today, I have upped my fertilization to be twice as frequent as it is in the winter. So for example, if I was only fertilizing once a month in the winter, I'm fertilizing once every 2 weeks now during the peak of the traditional growing season. So this plant is getting fertilized once every 2 weeks, and that is helping aid in this rapid growth as well. But I'm going to trade her out for the next philodendron that I want us to look at. So this next philodendron has actually been my second fastest growing philodendron. And honestly, this one and the one I'm going to show you after this really have been growing at the same rate. So they're both my second fastest growing philodendron, if you will. And that is my Philodendron Brasil. And here's a picture of what she looked like just back in May, so not even that long ago. And she has grown significantly since then. So here's what she is actually looking like now. And as you can see, a very full. Those vines are all starting to get longer, and I do have a few super long vines here, not quite as long as on the cordatum, but they're getting there. And to be honest with you, there was one longer vine. Oh my gosh, she's heavy. I'm gonna have to take her down from holding her like that. But there was one longer vine on here and I accidentally snapped it off. I don't even know how it happened. Like, I'm still kind of confused. But yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. It just was on the floor after I was watering her one day. And yeah, so if that hadn't happened, we would definitely be looking a little bit longer and fuller on the bottom half here than we are right now. But honestly, she's just put out a ton of growth. And I know you couldn't see in that picture I showed you from May, but up on top, she's actually gotten quite a bit fuller from back then as well. So definitely just seeing a ton of growth going on this plant. And what's interesting is I actually moved her from a southeast facing window where she was living in the winter to directly in a north facing window in the dining room back in the spring. And I actually think she's put out more new growth since I moved her to that north facing window than she did when she was in the southeast facing window. So go figure. Who knows why that is, but she seems to be loving life in that window for now. However, I will keep a very close eye on it as we move further into the fall and winter months and the light in that north window becomes less and less, and make sure that I move her to a brighter location if I need to. So the next plant we're going to be taking a look at is my Philodendron Micans. And here's what she looked like back in January. And if you guys will remember, that one longish vine you're seeing in this picture did get even longer to the point that I needed to propagate her. And that's exactly what we did back in April in my How to Propagate a Philodendron video. But since then, that vine that we propagated has gotten back to the same length it was at the time that we propagated it. And the other vines of this plant have caught up to that vine as well. Now, I did repot this plant back in March, beginning of March, I believe. And so we did go from, I think it was a 3.5-inch pot up to a 4.5-inch pot, and we have just really taken off since then. So here is what she is looking like today. And as you can see, that one vine has gotten back to its full length, and these other vines have caught up to it, and we are just looking absolutely gorgeous. And the top of this plant is nice and full, and there are actually still some vines up here that haven't really gotten long. So here's an example of one right here. I don't know how well you can see it. This is just the start of a little vine. So that one eventually is going to get longer and it's going to fill in kind of what's going on the back here. Now she is sitting on a shelf, so I typically have this side towards the back and I just push these other vines forward, but I do rotate her. And when I do, I just shift the vines around to that side so that I can scoot her onto that shelf. Hi, Toby. Don't eat that. Apparently Toby thought the dried petiole sheathings that had fallen off of here looked like a tasty snack, so I had to stop him from trying to eat those, but I think he's gonna lay here and be good now. But yeah, this plant has just put out a ton of new growth and I am so excited about it. I just look up on my shelf in my living room where she's been living and I'm just like, you are just so beautiful. you look great. And she was doing fine on the shelf that she was originally on in the living room, which was the furthest shelf from the window. But I did move her about maybe 3 weeks ago now to a closer to the window shelf, not all the way next to the window, but to where she was getting at least a little bit more light to really help along all of this new growth that I've been seeing. So the next plant we're going to take a look at, I honestly am just so happy to be seeing all of the new growth I am seeing on this plant, especially over the course of the last few weeks. And we did have a little bit of an issue since the last time you saw this plant, and I will explain that in a second. But that is my Alocasia Tiny Dancer. And as you see here, this is a shot from the video I did on, I believe, Alocasia care. And this was back in June, or I think it aired in June, but I think I probably actually filmed it at the end of May. And as you can see, there's like 4 leaves on this plant. And I did tell you guys in that video that this plant stopped growing and lost a bunch of leaves when the heat went out in my house during the winter and the temperature dropped to below 55. So that's what happened. But then I wasn't seeing any new growth really when we moved into spring. And I actually ended up taking this plant out of its pot and inspecting it a little bit closer. And that's when I discovered a plug. Yep, that's right. This plant was a plug. And so we really did not have as many roots as I was expecting to find. And so I ended up removing that plug and down potting her into a 4-inch pot from a 6-inch pot. I also then moved her into a brighter location for the summer because she was pretty far back from my south-facing windows in my living room, which was fine during the winter when the sun was shining directly through those windows. But I knew she wasn't getting enough light when that sun stopped coming direct through those windows. So she's been living on those shelves behind my couch since probably about 2 months ago now. And we have seriously, finally taken off. And so here's what she is looking like now. And I know she's got such tiny stems and leaves, it's probably hard to totally tell looking at this, but you can see why she's called the Tiny Dancer. I mean, look at how these leaves and stems twist towards the light. So I am constantly rotating her, but they just twist in such an interesting way. And it just makes this plant look so cute. But we do currently have, I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaves on here. We did have a 7th one that had to be removed recently because I went a little too long between waterings, but that was on me. But we do have another one starting to come in right now. I don't know if you can see it right down there, but new leaves starting to unfurl. And like I said, she has just been pumping out these new leaves nonstop over the last few weeks. And I think we have finally recovered from being down potted, and that is what is helping with this growth as well. But so happy for her, and I can't wait to see just how many leaves we get between now and the end of summer, and I'll be sure to give you an update. So this next plant we're gonna look at, you actually haven't seen in a while. I think maybe even the last time you saw this plant might have been in my bedroom plant tour, which was quite some time ago. But that is my Aphelandra squarrosa, also commonly known as a zebra plant, and here's what that plant looked like back in March when we did that bedroom plant tour. And since then, I have had to move this up to a larger pot. Actually, now that I think about it, you were with me when I repotted this plant. That was part of my repot and chat video. That was maybe a few weeks after that bedroom plant tour. And I do hope that how much this plant has grown really translates well on camera here today, because I just know in person how much bigger it's gotten, but hopefully you'll be able to tell. Let's go ahead and let me see if I can get him picked up and on screen for you. So here he is in all of his big gloriousness, and you're not really going to be able to see my face, but I hope you can tell just how much more growth he has put out. He is just looking massive, and I'm hoping that we are about to get to the point where we are going to get our new flowers for this season, because he did produce 2 beautiful flowers last season. So I'm hoping that we're going to get those again this year. I am also just now noticing that there is a mushroom growing on the soil in the pots. Gonna have to take care of that after this video. But that is not uncommon, just so you guys know, for plants like this that want all the water in the world, because I have told you before, this plant does not like to dry out in the slightest. I mean, the second the top of the soil starts to look dry, I'm like on high alert to go water this plant, otherwise it will throw leaves at me. But this plant is still living in the same location in my bedroom that it was in the bedroom plant tour video. Even though the lighting got a little bit less coming through those southern windows over the spring and summer, it didn't seem to care. It's been just fine with it. It's been pumping out, like I said, a ton of new growth. It's definitely happy that we are into the higher humidity portion of the year. Definitely does not like that lower humidity during the winter, but I haven't had to use a humidifier anymore since we got into spring, I believe, was when I stopped using that. And he has just constantly been putting out these beautiful, gorgeous new leaves. So super happy, and I'm just so excited to see if we actually get flowers again this year. Fingers crossed. So this next plant, I actually am kind of shocked that I'm actually even including it in this list, because I haven't even had it that long. I actually acquired it back in the middle of June, and you guys just recently saw it for the first time in my most recent plant haul video, and that is my Pilea glauca. However, I was sitting in my office yesterday and I just gazed over at it and was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how much new growth it has put out. So here's what it looked like when I first got it back in the middle of June. And so as you can see, there's a few vines that are kind of long, but not a ton. It's not looking like incredibly full in terms of its viningness. It still looks good and pretty full up on top. But here we are now, not even 2 months later, and this is what this plant looks like. And look at all of that growth. Look at how long those vines are. I mean, just look at it. It is just so full, so lush. You can see up on top there, very, very full. Definitely just growing like mad. Crazy, crazy fast. So I had to include it in this video. I mean, I can't even believe how quickly it has filled in. It is obviously loving life, living directly in that north-facing window in my office. And I mean, I'm in awe. I cannot believe when I went back and looked at that picture from June and then looked at this plant in person, how quickly it has grown. And remember, it had to acclimate to my house, but it clearly didn't skip a beat when acclimating at all. So I am just super impressed with this plant. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend getting one if you can find one in your area. Once again, I did acquire this at one of my local Kroger grocery stores. So if you do have a grocery store that carries plants, maybe try there first. But just, I can't even imagine if we've already put this much growth out in not even 2 months, what we're gonna look like at the end of summer, but I'm definitely excited to see. Now I wanted to include this next plant because I really just wanted to give you an update on how we were doing, and our growth rate is picking up though. Now it's not like one of the fastest growing plants I've got going on in my house right now, but I just really wanted to give you guys an update because I'm really excited about it. And the last time you saw this plant was on June 1st, I believe, and that is the baby Rattlesnake Calathea from my Is It Really Dead video. And this is what it looked like the last time you saw it. It had lost that one original leaf that had been hanging on by a thread, and it had gotten a new leaf, and there was another one trying to push in from that point. But since then, over the course of the last few weeks, we have been putting out even more new leaves. So as you can see here, we now have a total of 4 leaves, and there is another one starting to push out up in the bottom there that you just can't really see. But we are starting to pick up growth very significantly here. I have increased my fertilization. I'm actually fertilizing with a diluted mixture every single time I water this plant now to really help encourage this new growth to come in. But this plant is making its comeback. It's gonna be a little bit of a slow and steady situation, but we are starting to pick up that rate of growth, so that is making me extremely happy. And so hopefully by the end of this summer, we'll have this whole pot filled back in, but I'll be sure to keep you updated and let you know. But in the meantime, let's move on to the plant that has impressed me the most this traditional growing season so far, and I am so happy for her. Let me go grab her. She's another big plant, so we're gonna try to make sure we can get her all the way on screen here for you. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so I've got her here ready to show you, but first let's take a look at what she looked like. I believe this was the last time you saw her, which was back in April, and I think this is from my prayer plant care video, and that is my Stromanthe Triostar, also known as a tricolor ginger plant, which is why I refer to her as Ginger. And as I told you in that video, she had had some leaf issues throughout the winter. She did get either a fungal or a bacterial infection on her leaves, I'm not sure which, and I was fighting that. We did lose a lot of leaves. And as I said in that video, and as you can see here, I still don't think she looked that bad, but I know what she looked like before that. And I feel like she had lost a ton of leaves. And on the back side of her, you can see she looked incredibly bald back there. That's where the most of the leaf loss had occurred. And since then, though, she has just taken off. We finally got that leaf issue eradicated, and she has just been loving a life in the north-facing window in my dining room and has been pumping out new growth like nobody's business. And I even removed recently, I think a total of like 6 to 8 of those old leaves, because a lot of them I had cut the ends off. They had gotten shorter and shorter, but I didn't want to remove the whole leaf if I didn't have to. But now that she's put out all this new growth, I was like, all right, well, let's get rid of some of these crappy old looking leaves. So keep in mind, within the last few weeks, I have removed 8 leaves off of this plant. Granted, they were old ones, but she still looks incredibly full. So here is what we are looking like right now. I might have to lean back so that you can see every beautiful inch of her, but she has filled in so beautifully. We have gotten higher levels of variegation in the last few weeks on this plant, or probably even the last few months if I'm being honest with you. But just look at her. Look how full and beautiful she looks. Look at those leaves. And there are new leaves coming in every single day, you guys. There's a new one starting to come in right here, if you can see it. Right here is a leaf getting ready to unfurl. And there are even more just tucked in down lower in this plant that I can see, but I'm not gonna be able to get close up on the camera for you guys to see it. But I will also tell you, so I did recently rotate her. I do have to rotate her pretty much every time I water her. This side is facing the window now. That side that we looked at in the previous shot of the back side of her where she was bald, that is this side. When this side faces the window now, she looks full. Now, because this side is currently not facing the window, the leaves are pointing the other direction, so you can still see in the back that when she's facing this way, she looks a little bit bald on the back. But all in all, I think that still looks way fuller than the backside picture that I showed you a second ago. Don't you agree? So I am just so proud of her. I am so happy for her. I'm really hoping that we don't have any kind of leaf issues this winter. And I will tell you guys, so here's part of what I think might have happened. And I have heard that Calathea, or prayer plant family plants in general, but especially Calatheas, really don't like to be moved. Once they find a spot that they're happy in, one of the worst things you can do, according to a lot of people, is move them because they will throw a fit. Now, I have never experienced that with any of my Marantas. I have tried them in various different places in my house. They like where they are the best right now, but they didn't get crazy and drop leaves or anything like that when I tried them in other areas. They just weren't growing as quickly for me. And my Calathea, same thing. But this plant, I actually did relocate her last winter because I was worried there wasn't enough light in that north-facing window for her. And that's where everything first started going wrong. She got that leaf issue. At first I thought maybe it was leaf burn, like she was just getting too much light in the new location. And then I realized it wasn't leaf burn, it was something else. And from there it all went downhill until I moved her back into that north-facing window, the original spot that she was in the dining room. And then we were able to get things back under control. And like I said, after that, when we moved into spring, she has now just taken back off. So if I feel like the level of lighting isn't enough for her in that spot this winter, I am not moving her. She has made it perfectly clear to me that that is where she wants to live. So if we need extra light, I'm gonna get a grow light and I'm gonna try supplementing light that way, because I do not wanna go through what I went through last year with this poor plant. And hopefully that's not what happens, but of course if it does, I will be sure to let you guys know. But once again, I am just in awe of how beautiful she looks and how big she's got, and just she's so gorgeous. I love her. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video today. If you have, be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below, and comment down below and let me know what some of your fastest growing plants have been during this traditional growing season. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!